Cool. Looks like we are live, and it looks like we have the illustrious Alex McKinley with us. Alex,
Illustrious.
yeah,
What does that
Alex
mean?
has, I don't know. I think of illustrator, illustrations,
Okay.
illustrious. You're very, you were made into a plushie. So, I mean, somebody had to illustrate you.
Hey, they say that. We know the merch team just used that as a way to sell more. They thought they would sell more plushies because it looks nothing like me. It has way more hair than I do.
Hey, well, and over the years, those things change. So,
That's true.
it's
That's
fine.
true.
Just have to get an updated plushie, but the
Maybe
wisdom.
they'll cut off the dreads off of it.
Cut off the dreads. I know, yeah, it's dreads. Actually, was it even modeled? It wasn't even modeled after you, right? It was just
No, no.
and then they okay. And somebody
So I
said, "Hey, it's an Alex doll."
yes, 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 yes. I shouldn't be saying that. We're giving out the AAPC secrets right here.
Yeah, the behind the scenes, how our merch is made.
Yes.
Well, welcome everyone to Social Hour. I haven't even said welcome yet. We got I think we're live on Facebook, so we should be good there. Let us know in the comments where you're joining us from. We always love to see that. Alex, how are you doing today? How's the last 2 weeks been? I actually missed the last Social Hour, so how's your last month been?
It's it's been good. This heading into the holidays, it's crazy because I remember in the summer or maybe it's like August, September, we're thinking we're getting close to the holidays and now it's like light speed. We're in it,
Yeah.
trying to get things done and this I love this time of the year, Dave. I don't know how you feel about it.
Well, I was talking about this with a couple friends of mine the other day, and we're driving down the road, and it seemed like it was 9 o'clock at night. It just seemed, for me, that's
Yeah.
late. That's like bedtime.
Yeah.
And I look down at my clock, and it's like 5:30. I'm like, what is going on? The wintertime can be hard because it gets so dark so early. But what I do love that counterbalances that is like the coziness, the warmth, the lights, the family get-togethers, all of that. And so I think it's
Yes.
time
Well,
in those,
Christmas music, Christmas trees. You into that? You do you love like
oh
all of
yeah.
the
Oh
pomp
yeah.
and
I'm gonna decorate
circumstance?
my RV here. So
Ooh.
it's gonna be all Christmassy-fied.
Hey, how about daylight savings? Are you a fan of because I I like that I get tired earlier and then it's easier for me to wake up earlier, but I don't like that it gets dark sooner, like you mentioned.
Yeah. And the transition is always funky depending on what you've got going on. But I'm of the notion that we should get rid of daylight savings. We actually don't need time zones either. So, and my third thing is the metric system. Yeah, we need to be on the metric system.
Yes,
So if
yes.
I run for president of the world next election,
Hey, you have my vote of
that's what I'm running
confidence
on.
for
I
sure.
think I mentioned that before, but it would just make life so much easier. And the time zone thing, think about it. If you really think about it, we don't need it. If there's a universal time, it doesn't matter if that time is nighttime for someone or daytime for someone
Yeah,
else. You just know, what time it is everywhere. So it's just that time.
I love it. Man, we're getting deep today.
Yeah, I just figured we should kick this off with some maybe some controversial things that aren't too
Well,
controversial.
Susan in Hawthorne, or sorry, Susan Hawthorne in Northeast PA. Are you pro or con on the daylight savings situation? Because I think only one state doesn't have it in the US. Is that right? Like Arizona, I think it is.
Arizona doesn't have it. There might be one other that doesn't recognize daylight savings.
Right. Lori Jaramillo, she's watching. Are you for or against daylight savings, Lori? Lori, this is how we're kicking this
Wow.
off. She's so we'll see what they say.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. I'm also curious, while we're talking, if you want to drop in the comments what your like either Thanksgiving plans are or your holiday Christmas plans, whatever you celebrate Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, the winter solstice, I don't know. But drop your stuff in there. I love seeing what everybody's got going on. And if anybody has anything really weird or interesting or some crazy travel thing that they're going on, drop it in the chat and we'll love to see that and
Hey,
mention it. So
speaking of travel, we haven't heard where you ended up after your long stint at the Mount Shasta area. Where are
yeah.
you now?
So yeah, I spent like almost 5 months camping around the mountain of Mount Shasta, on the mountain, down at the base, around the lake and everything. And then I went down to Southern California for a little like a festival thing down there and spent a little bit of time there. But then I actually came back I decided to get a little monthly spot to kind of wait out the winter here in Northern California. So I'm back just a little bit further away from Mount Shasta, but close. So
You're in the Walmart parking lot, I bet.
yeah, if I turned my thing, you'd see a Walmart sign right there. No, I'm not. I was like, well, if it's going to be snowing and it's going to be cold, I need electrical hookups and I need, full water and everything. Because I typically will boondock. And if you don't know what boondocking is, it's like just using the resources that you have on board, right? You're not plugged in anywhere. So
Okay.
I'm really self-sufficient in that way. I have solar and internet and all that stuff. But in the winter, I don't want to take any chances. So it's nice to
I think
just
we need a health con session on how to be a nomad with presented by Dave Kaiser.
I've learned so much. I've been doing it over a year now, which isn't a long time compared to a lot of people that have been doing this. I was probably late to the game, but
Yeah.
there's no timetable for that. It's just
Okay.
been fun.
Okay. There's some great comments in there. Our buddy Kelly, she loves camping and boondocking is awesome.
Oh, nice. I gotta see if I could pull the comments
Top of it.
here. Cut off the dreads. Yeah, it's
Hey,
dread.
when you run for president, your policy on daylight savings will be a hit because Susan and Lori and Valerie, they are all on board. So there you go.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. It's an easy thing. I think we can all agree on it too. It's very unifying, a unifying topic. Speaking of, I mean, we don't need to talk politics, but man, lots of interesting things happen in the world. We had a big election and there's lots of different feelings around all that. But I tend to, regardless of who's in that seat, I tend to just put my faith that everything's going to work out how it should. And that if we do our part individually, collectively, those things will echo. We just need
Focusing on your
our part
community,
individually. What's that?
focusing on your community where you have the most impact, your
Your
medical
spirit.
coding community.
Exactly. Your medical coding community. And honestly, just I think it comes down to love. Just loving people, even if you don't agree with their views or their stances, even if they're really like personal, hard issues, you can still love through that. So that's my message. That's my political message. So
I'm with you.
do you remember Marianne Williamson? This might be it's not
No.
controversial. You don't, okay. Well, she ran for president a couple years ago, and she's a published author and kind of well known in maybe more of like a new age space because she's yeah, it's just interesting stuff. But the platform that she ran on was like, we need to be nicer to each other. We don't, all of these other issues come down to the fact that we just are not good to each other as humans and we could be so much better. So
Yeah.
anyway, I just thought that was cool.
Yeah.
Not that I was some proponent of her. I'm not a proponent of anyone.
Hey, we see that love and unity in our local chapters on our social media communities, and that's what I love about what we do is we can be a part of that, even though we have no clue about medical coding, Dave. We get the honor of being infused into that world.
Exactly. Infused, adopted into it. And we just try and bring our own little things to it too. And um, speaking of which, we've got some great guests. So we should probably get into that.
Let's
Um,
go.
in this month's article, the November 2024 AAPC Magazine, there's an article in it, and the title of it here is High Risk Debridement, Coding, and Documentation. And here to talk about her article, we have Leigh Poland. So, Leigh, do you want to turn on your camera and unmute yourself and join us here?
Absolutely. And thank you for having me on to talk about the article that was in the AAPC magazine. I was so excited to be able to participate in
Hey, Lee,
that.
would you bump your camera so it points down more? Can you
Down.
do that? There you go.
Better.
You're taller. Yes, I love it.
Yeah,
We will
it's a
try.
nice red sweater too. You got to show that.
We'll try.
It's very holiday appropriate.
Okay.
It's okay.
So yes, but it was a pleasure to write the article, and it's one of those high risk areas with coding. So we kind of dive into the intricacies of not only the code assignment, but also the documentation that's required for debridement procedures.
I had no idea what debridement, and I didn't even realize I was saying it wrong. Debridement is what I was saying.
Right.
And I mentioned to you before going live, I had no idea what that was. Can you, like, what is that? Like, in a simplified manner for maybe like a student coder who's watching?
Right, absolutely. So, debridement is oftentimes used for wound care. And we see that with, it could be anything from cellulitis to pressure injuries, maybe even fracture care where they're maybe having an infection. But they're basically going in there and removing that dead or devitalized tissue in order to promote healthy tissue growth um, with that particular wound or infection.
Wow. So what makes it high risk? Like whether it's a high risk debridement, is
Yeah.
it the location of it or?
Well, several different things with debridement. There are a lot of different guidelines that lead you to accurate code assignment. There are several different official resources out there, like your coding clinics, AMA CPT assistant, that also offer a lot of details on guidance. But you have to be able to dissect the op note to make sure all of the key components are there that are required for accurate code assignment. And many times as you're reading through that particular documentation, you'll find either gaps where things are not clearly defined in that documentation, or maybe things that are conflicting. And one of the examples that we used within the article, it was actually for a facility inpatient visit. And, the terminology of just non-excisional versus excisional can really make a huge impact with the code assignment and then ultimately your reimbursement as well. And I think it was like a $20,000 difference if you were to code it non-excisional versus excisional. And we all want accurate reimbursement. So we want to make sure that code assignment is accurate and that the documentation supports that code assignment as well.
How did you find out about this? What pulled you into this?
To this particular area, it's probably been, time flies. And one of the reasons I really started focusing on this particular area of coding is when the RAC audits started out. And during the demonstration project for RAC, which is your recovery audit contractor, one of the high risk areas that they immediately identified was for debridements. And they noted, hospitals across the US and providers across the US where there was huge overpayments for these types of claims because, maybe the documentation did not support that assignment, or it was just coded incorrectly from the documentation that was present. And so, going through some of those audit results when I was working at the facility level and looking at the trends that they were finding, it's kind of always been, from that moment, it's kind of always been one of those things that's been on my radar. But it's not only popped up for the RAC, it also is on the OIG's radar as a high-risk MSD or high-risk area. We see that with different insurance carriers as well, where they'll request, reviews of those particular accounts. Because the error rate for those particular encounters can be quite so high.
Okay.
Cool.
There are a
Sorry
few
about
good
internet. I
comments.
think I froze up a little bit.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, there are a few good comments in the chat. I don't know if you see those, Dave.
Yeah.
Lori Harmella says that's a big difference in cost. This is you mentioned that earlier, but Valerie Bochard Rayner says, is slough considered gangrene? It doesn't seem correct. In our wound care center, our MDs use this term, but it leads to code gangrene. Also, Medicare is auditing 97, 597, and 8 right now. Thoughts on that?
Right. And that is another focus, MSDRG for sure, the 975. You will with sloth, make sure that you're going or following your index. And if it does lead to gangrene, then you want to make sure that you're coding that appropriately. But if there's ever any doubt, once you read through that documentation, if it's truly a gangrene condition, then you probably want to follow up with that query to the physician and just confirm that particular diagnosis, because that could lead to, a change in the DRG assignment as well.
So gangrene's a good example, right? Because you got is that the debridement process, and it's how you do it, like whether you're excising it or whether you're scraping it, isn't there like
Right,
a lot of
right.
methods?
So there's a lot of different methods and a lot of different instruments you can use. Of course, with excisional, that one makes a little bit more sense where you're using either a scalpel or scissors, a definite cutting away of tissue to remove that, devitalize the dead tissue. There are also different other instruments that are quite interesting that they can use for non-excisional. We see definitely like lavage, where they're just going in there and irrigating that wound and removing the tissue. But we also see maggot therapy and being utilized in a lot of facilities, and that is also coded to non-excisional. So you have to, even though we cannot code based on the instrument alone, there is a lot of guidance in coding clinic that tells us, okay, if this particular instrument is used, like whirlpool therapy or maggot therapy, we code those to non-excisional debridement. So it's important within your documentation that, one, you have it clearly stated excisional, non-excisional, but you also have the instrument that is being used and also the tissue depth. Are they just debriding the skin? Are they working down into the muscle or fascia or even the bone area as well? So each of those different levels results in a different code assignment, and also, ultimately can impact your reimbursement as well.
Yeah, I can see that, because some of those procedures would take way longer, especially if you got to go down path, through multiple levels of tissue.
Absolutely.
So how to get reimbursed for that time, and that's important because you miss out on a lot otherwise.
Right.
Does that seem to be a common thing that you're seeing? Is that that things aren't getting documented right, and so they're not getting coded right in the debridement? Is that why you felt the need to write this article?
Absolutely. Documentation is key, and it's not only for debridements, but documentation is definitely key for debridements. And many times, the physician might say excisional debridement at the top of the op note, but once we look in the body of the op note, he's more, or he or she is likely describing a non-excisional debridement. So it leads to that conflicting documentation. And then also, as you read through those notes, you'll find it's not clear on maybe the tissue depth that is debrided. So, for example, coding clinic warns you that the physician might state, I debrided down to the muscle. But not only does the physician need to say down to, but he needs to say including that muscle tissue. So many times, to me, with facility inpatient coding, it's one of the top areas that we see where we have to issue that query to the physician for those gaps in documentation, or because it's conflicting as well. And it's not only, I know I pointed out with the procedure, but many times the diagnosis as well. Is it a diabetic wound, or is there gangrene present? Is another big one. Just defining what is the underlying cause of that wound as well.
Interesting. So the underlying cause, so you're saying that could also affect, I guess it affects what else would need to be done there, right?
Right. It can affect the treatment. It could affect the DRG assignment and ultimately the payment as well. Because many times with these type of wounds, they do become infected. It could lead to something like sepsis. And with that particular infection, you have to think about, okay, was this also present on admission? And maybe this should be my PDX. There's a lot of kind of questions that you have to ask in your mind. Also, if it ends up being a diabetic wound, maybe due to the patient having, peripheral vascular disease or something of that nature, you'll also sequence maybe that diabetes first instead of the wound itself. So there's a lot of conventions and coding clinics out there regarding the diagnosis assignment too.
Hey, Lori Harmello in the comments, she said what I have been thinking. Maggot sounds so gross.
It does.
And all of this, I'm like, I feel so bad for those who have to deal. I mean, these are this painful and tough things to deal with.
Absolutely. And I can imagine being a wound care nurse or, nursing or even physicians. A lot of these patients, it's not one and done type of debridement. They're having to go back over and over and over. But, when I was making my decision on what degree I wanted to obtain, I thought, oh, nursing would be wonderful, but the blood and the guts and all of those different things kind of deterred me from that.
Yeah.
I can read about it, but I definitely would not, I would not have a strong enough stomach to do some of these different procedures that we're seeing.
Yeah.
And maggot therapy is absolutely one of those, but it is, a quite popular wound care mechanism that we do see with our accounts.
That's
crazy. Can you explain a little bit about how that procedure works? How they perform with the maggots?
I mean, they basically, and it's mostly done at the bedside. And of course, you have your wound care therapist that's there to assist. But they basically are putting those maggots onto that devitalized tissue. And it kind of just, they work in there to eat up all that dead
how long do they
tissue
stay?
and bring it back to healthy.
How long do they stay in the tissue? What's the time frame?
How long? I've seen, 30 minutes. We've seen an hour. It just depends, I guess, on the severity of that particular wound. But it would be interesting to get a physician's experience with that particular procedure and try to understand a little bit more about the time frames and different things. But it is definitely interesting to kind of read through. And then I've always wondered, what do they do with the maggots after the fact?
Yeah.
But maybe I don't want to think about
that. Maggots turn into flies, right? So you don't want them gestating too long. I'm sure there's a time period, and then they donate them to a fly sanctuary.
Well, didn't they used to use leeches, or maybe they still do now for some therapies, right? So all of that, it's just fascinating how we use natural things for some treatments.
As an animal lover, but not someone that is, loving maggots, I hope they rehome them or something. I would hate to know they come to their demise after the treatment itself. So I don't know. That's a great question for a facility.
Yeah. So Leigh, you've got outside of your article, you've got 2 sessions that you're speaking at.
I do.
Is that correct?
I do.
What are the titles? Tell us about those.
Yeah. I'm super excited about being in Orlando this April. AAPC HealthCon is an amazing conference. It's a full week of learning all different topics. But my two sessions are mainly driven towards inpatient facility coders. Our first session is called Unlocking the Full Potential of Stroke, Coding and Documentation. And so not only will we look at the stroke diagnosis, but we'll also look at some of the complications that occur from patients who have stroke and some of the secondary diagnoses that we commonly see. Missed query opportunities we'll also talk through, and then also some of the common procedures that are performed with those patients and giving tips on what to look for in the documentation as well as the coding. And then the other one is a little bit, not that stroke is easier, but we're also conducting an advanced session on PCS coding for orthopedic procedures. And so we'll look at everything from joint replacement to maybe the patient has a complication from that joint replacement and is having to come back in maybe for, a replacement of that or, for that procedure. We're looking at amputations and talking about some of the nuances that you have to make sure you're familiar with, bone biopsies, fracture care, but that list kind of goes on and on. But, making sure that we're coding those appropriately because, again, accurate coding, accurate reimbursement is key. And we want to make sure that we give them tips on how to code as well as tips on what to look for in that documentation.
Awesome. Now, have you spoken before at a health con, or is this your first time?
So I don't know if you remember or if you were with AAPC at that time, but during COVID, we had a remote AAPC HealthCon, and I did speak at that one. Yeah.
Okay. So the one that we used, was it Adobe Connect, that platform?
Right.
That was the one that basically gave, we have to cancel our conference unless we can do it virtual. How can we do this? And I was like, we'd been using that program for our VILT program. Our VILT instructors first using those rooms. So we had all these extra rooms and I thought to use them for conference. So that's cool. I didn't know you were a part of that first virtual health con.
And then that was
awesome. We kind of
it was awesome. It
pioneered that hybrid thing a little bit.
Yeah. And fortunately, we were able to have the week of education during that time. And it still was an opportunity for us to get together and share ideas and teamwork and things like that. But then I also had the opportunity to speak at the regional event this past fall, I think in Philadelphia. I was there for that particular session as well.
I was there too. I'm sorry I didn't meet you there.
Well, I think it was in Philadelphia. There's been so many different I speak a lot, so I'm one of those that don't look at where I'm going for that week until probably that Friday before. So I think it was Philadelphia this time.
Yeah, that's cool. That's awesome. Yeah. Sounds like you've got a lot going on.
Right.
So good to meet you, Leigh.
Great to meet you as well. And thank you so much for having me on today and to talk about Debridement.
Yeah, we're excited to see you in Orlando as well. So that'll be a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
And with us, who you're also going to see in Orlando, is Kathrine Abel. So let's all welcome Kathrine Abel here. And again, thank you, Leigh, for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Leigh.
Kathrine.
Hello.
Kathrine has a lot of things to talk about today. All things curriculum, right? Content.
Okay, sure, we can do curriculum. We can do exams.
Where do you want to start?
Curriculum's a great place to start. We actually have had a fabulous year in our updates.
Interrupted. Do you want to just briefly, people know who you are, but do you want to just briefly introduce yourself? Give a bit of background, and then...
She's one of our most popular guests for sure. She has the information our members, our students especially, want to know.
So I am Kathrine Abel, and I am the Senior Director of Content Development. That means that I work with all of our products that leave, as well as all of our exams that leave AAPC, or the content within those exams, keeping them secure, making sure that we have the right SMEs on the right products, um, making sure that our products are correct and accurate and are in a way that we are teaching others in ways that they can learn best.
But you're also, I mean, you're a expert coder. You have worked in this field for many years. You know all of this in and out, and you're translating it to education.
So I did start out coding. I actually was a certified coder prior to being with the AAPC and working with the AAPC. I actually was my first certification with the AAPC I obtained in 1997. I know that gives away my age a little bit. It was definitely before the 2000s. So I started there. I actually, before I got into coding, I was in billing. And as I would go through and work items in billing, you have to understand coding to work some of it. And I always loved to continue to learn. So I got in the coding arena and have continued to learn immensely information about the physician's office and facilities as we've continued to grow with the regulations and compliance. And I remember when HIPAA was a big thing and it was just coming, the administration simplification was just coming around the corner, right? Now it's HIPAA. Everybody knows about HIPAA now. So it's definitely been an adventure. It's been exciting. I love the change. I'm a big person for change. I like things that change, and this industry never stops changing. So it keeps me entertained.
I love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Kathrine, you've been with the AAPC for how long?
I have been with the APC for, I believe it's 17 and a half years now.
17 and a half. That's awesome.
And we've seen some change as well as at AAPC.
So,
We've continued to grow, and we've continued to grow into different areas other than just coding, as we started in coding, but we've continued to expand our membership base to include all avenues.
yeah, right. Trying to get away from just the coding, right? Or
Mhm.
even just coding and billing, but auditing, practice management, compliance,
Documentation
even just
improvement,
the soft
inpatient
documentation.
documentation
Oh, yeah,
improvement.
so many. Yeah, that's awesome. So as far as the curriculum updates go for 2025, how are we looking? Where are we at on that time frame of what's been released, what's come out, what codes have come out, but yet the curriculum still needs to be updated and be ready for January 1. Give us a little tell us what you've been working on.
So we have deadlines, of course, to meet all year long. We actually start our updates, believe it or not, in February. So once we get all of our information live, we have that 1 month where we get any trailing items changed, and then we start in February all over again. So what one might think is a 1 quarter process, it's actually a full year to get all of our products updates because of the amount of products and the varying topics that we cover. Many of our products are regulatory, which means that when those regulations change, they have to be updated. It's not all code based now. Whereas before we had, very focused on code updates. And so it was just in the latter part of the year. But now we actually do our updates starting in February. I do see a lot of the comments that are coming through. I can't see all of them, but I do see a lot of them, you saying hi to me. So thank you. I am saying hi back. I'm sorry I can't catch all of you in those comments, but I will go back and look at that for you. But so our first release that we have is our code courses, what we call our core courses. So our CPC, our CPB, our CPMA, CDEI, CDEO. risk adjustment, the core courses that we work on, those actually get released with our updates on November 1st. So even though our code updates may come out delayed, or our HICPICS doesn't get released until Halloween every year. So it gets released on October 31st of every year, most of the time. And so our courses go live, and then we quickly do an errata or make the changes from those HICPICS releases in our live courses. So we are consistently doing those updates. So we have all of our core courses updated, and one would think that would be great. Our curriculum team can relax now, but we have much more that comes after that. We have
Practicode?
I'm sorry?
Practicode, is that included?
We have Practicode. Practicode actually does not get updated on November 1st. That gets updated on January 1st. But that is one of the things that is being worked on currently. We have a great deal of records in that system, and making sure that those get updated and updated appropriately takes a lengthy process. And for all of our updates, whether it's exams or curriculum or Practicode, all of our exams typically go through a 2-review process and then an internal review process. So you have 3 eyes on those before they actually get published to the public. So our Practicode is getting updated currently. Our what we call our certificate courses, which can be our specialty courses. We have our neurology, advanced neurology. We have home health, skilled nursing. We have a data analyst course. We have an EMR course. All of these continuing education type courses that we have that don't really tie in directly with a credential exam, those are all getting updated during this time, as well as our specialty study guides. And in fact, I think it's all of our study guides. They all go live on January 1st. And so we're in the process of making all of that happen, as well as getting all of our updates ready to roll for our exams for the next year, as well as our practice exams and our any prep materials that we have for those exams. So we have to get information ready for our local chapters. We have to get information ready for our licensed instructors to be able to sell. So we have I think it's over 10,000 components that we actually update every single year. So it's a continual process, but we are definitely still in the thick of it and still getting all of that updated.
Yeah,
Wow.
it sounds like you're always in the thick of it. I remember being more on the content side, and working on a lot of those updates. Those are mostly the end of year updates that I was involved in, the courses, the lectures, all of that. But now it just
So
seems like
Dave,
it's nonstop
had you
flow.
remained working heavily in that, you would be working all year long on it now.
Yeah.
So what many people don't realize is how many different departments actually work in our updates, right? We have our subject matter experts, we have our content team, we have our publishing team, we have our production team, we have marketing has to get all of their information updated. And we help with that. We have our exams team. And then we have, for each one of those departments, we have our operations departments that handle the operations side of those. So you can put out a list of people who work on those exams, and it's huge, right? We have a long list of people at AAPC and external SMEs that we contract to help us get these updates done.
Now here's the big kicker about all of this is that our content, our courses, our curriculum is world class. It's top notch. And that is a huge reflection on your work. So I think you should be
You're so
recognized for
sweet,
that.
Dave, but let me
Well, hey,
tell you,
I've seen it firsthand, and I've seen the results firsthand. So I'm just telling the truth here. But
people who work with me directly may have a different opinion of that,
I've
but
worked with you directly.
yes, you have. But we honestly, we couldn't do this without all the subject matter experts that we contract with. And I have so many lifelines that if I am not understanding something, or if I need to be updated on something, that I'm calling, or if something is incorrect, they're letting me know so that we can get that fixed as soon as possible. And I am so thankful for all of our members that take ownership in those products and help us maintain and keep them accurate.
Hey, there are several comments. This just reflects how well received Kathrine is by our members when she comes on. A lot, just tons of kudos as you deserve. You and your team are amazing. But I'm going to start with this, and I'm going to start by saying I spoke with Ray maybe a month or so ago about the fill in the blank questions on the exam. We've talked, that keeps coming up over the year. And the last she mentioned to me was there are other priorities right now, and we don't see that in the near future. Can you give us a little bit more information, Kathrine?
I can. And not only are there other priorities, right? We all have to put things in perspective. Fill in the blank it's not as easy as taking the cases and just stripping away the options and having people look them up. That adds time to the exam. We also have to make sure that all of our psychometrics remain reliable and that our exams remain reliable and that we have enough of a bank to make sure that our exam integrity is protected. So we do have a lot more priorities. We have a lot going on at AAPC. We're pushing a lot of stuff through. We have not dropped fill in the blank. We are continuing to work on it. As I told you before, we start in February working on our updates. So along with while we're doing all of our updates, we're also working on all of our new products and everything that we're pushing forward. And that includes our fill in the blank exams and how we're going to appropriately implement that on our exams and keep them reliable and secure and safe to make sure that our credentials have integrity to them. One of the items that I know my department has been focusing on greatly is the security of our exams and making sure that we keep our content safe and that we keep it secure. Because if anybody can go out there and pass our exams, then our credentials don't mean anything, right? So we have to have exams that are at the right level of difficulty and that it's reaching the right audience and that the people who pass our exams are supposed to pass our exams and be in this industry.
Kathrine, just back to the fill in the blanks. I guess our members will have a clue when we're getting closer when we start beta testing. That's what we've been telling people over the last year. Is that still a fair assessment?
It is a fair assessment, and we will let you know when it's going to happen. It's not like we're going to decide today and say, oh, our exams are going fill in the blank tomorrow, right? You're going to have preparation. You already have prep material, which as we prepare our students to learn what they need to know for the actual exams, we should also be preparing them for what they see in an office, right? And they are not going to walk into an office and be handed a case and say, which one of these 4 codes are you going to select for this case, right? They have to, the job is a fill in the blank job. So as you're preparing them for that, I would recommend to utilize the resources that we've given to those instructors with the fill in the blank cases and the fill in the blank. We've added fill in the blank to some of our practice exams. And I would recommend utilizing those and make sure that you're prepared to be able to actually code medical records. Because if we're turning out coders who can't code medical records, that also reflects in our credential. And again, we want to make sure that our credentials are supported.
Dave, I apologize. There are just 2 more questions about data analytics that I want to get to that are coming through.
No, that's
So,
great. I love data.
yeah.
Hey, I'm all about data.
Okay, I'm just going to roll this into one question. You can take it in 2 parts, but these are from 2 different individuals. Could you tell us more about data analytics, the data analytics course, please? And thank you for all you do. Secondly, follow up from someone else. Please explain data analytics and the demand for jobs in healthcare.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, any industry is driven by data. Anytime you want to make a change, the best way to support that is by using data. The only way to um, fully improve a process or to determine where you have weaknesses in processes is to use data. Leading into the data analytics course, we actually have a RCMS course, which is in exam credential, which is in beta testing right now, which is designed that person looks at the office procedures and data to identify areas to improve within the office. So they use data for that. And so data analytics, as we move towards more outcome-based medicine, instead of being paid fee for service, we are now paid for value base in some instances, and many of the payer systems are moving that direction. And as we move that direction, we have to look at data to see what's working for us and what's not working for us. So we do have a data analytics course. We are looking at expanding that course at this time. We're currently looking into that to see what we would need to do to expand that information or potentially incorporate some of that information in some of our other textbooks as well.
Thank you.
Awesome. Cool. Well, we had a question coming from the chat. Ryan Leonard Pay says he has a specific question about the CPC-I credential. He says, I'm incoming president of my local AAPC chapter, and I've heard that there's an opportunity to receive some kind of benefit with regards to CPC-I, maybe free classes or exam discount. My hope is to use the CPC-I credential to perform future CPC exam reviews for my chapter in 2025. So how are we supporting our instructors, our CPC-Is?
So we actually are working through making sure that our instructors are all reaching the same performance levels. But we have a CPC-I course that's out there, and that course goes through the first, whatever credential it is that you're getting an instructor for, making sure that you understand the basis of that credential and that you hold that credential. It also goes through the different learning styles of students, of learners, and how you can reach them. And it also goes through all of the different ways that you can access the benefits for instructors and what those benefits are. So the instructor course, it's a fairly short course. I'd say you could take it in about 8 hours. But outside of the online portion of that course, you also do a presentation and get reviewed on that presentation, as well as sitting for an actual instructor exam, which is a subset of the credential exam. So they do actually have to have a exam as well to get that approval as a licensed instructor.
Awesome. Cool. Great answer. Ryan Leonard Pay. Hopefully you heard all that and took that in. So it's fantastic. Yeah, our instructors and just the way our curriculum can we can plug it into so many different I guess levels of education.
Yes, you can. We've provided a very comprehensive curriculum for our products, and being able to utilize that curriculum to teach others helps those of us who've been in the industry for a little while pass that on to others. We're bringing in another generation now, right? Who is a little bit more electronically savvy and tends to use electronics to their benefit. And so making sure that we bring that into our curriculum and our teachings is is a very important factor. So we have put a little bit of that information into the curriculum. And as we do our Teach the Teacher every year at conferences and help them, we also bring a lot of technology in there so that we can incorporate that in how people are teaching our curriculum.
Yeah. Teach the Teacher. That's always a good time. The
It
pre-conference.
is a good time. I have to say, I'm pretty tired after that.
Long day.
There's a lot of information that comes out in that 8-hour day, and by the time we're done, I need a nap.
Yeah. So if any of you are, I mean, if people are even curious about becoming instructors, they could attend it, right? You don't have to actually be an instructor.
I think it's more for licensed instructors. They
Okay.
can, I do know that they can attend some of the sessions that are in there. We've got a half day that is for membership to sign up for as well. So that's always look out for the pre-conference and post-conference activities to see if there's things that you can join in on that might be helpful to you.
Hey, do
Yeah.
we know if there's a chapter officer discount on credentials specifically for Ryan on the CPC-I?
I do not know
Okay.
that.
You may want to call customer service, Ryan, and they can fill you in.
Sure, or you can call the local chapter department, your
Oh,
contacts for the officers, and they should be able to help you.
Cool. Good idea. I mean, that would be nice. We try and
Yes,
help everybody who volunteers for sure. So
absolutely.
I'd like to ask Kathrine a question that we ask every time she's on, but I think it's a good refresher because the question always comes up, and it has to do with code books. Kathrine, should members or examinees use current year code books on their current year exam? If we're going into 2025, I'm studying with the 2024 code books. I'm going to take my exam in, say, February or even January. In fact, let's say January, the first exam that you possibly can in January. Should I can I use my 2024 code books? Kathrine?
So you can, but let me put this out there. One, you should absolutely update your code books every single year. Even if codes are not significantly updated, guidelines in those code books are. And so it's very important to understand what the current guidelines are. So I truly believe you should update your code books every year. For the exam, we have a pass-fail exam, right? You either fail it and don't get your credentials, or you pass it and you do get your credentials. So we're on a pass-fail basis. And if I take in last year's books and I make a 69, am I going to sit there and wonder that I missed one? Is it worth my credential to miss that exam, that question that's going to push me from a fail to a pass? I mean, for me, that 4-hour exam and all of that time that I've studied, I would hate to miss it because I don't answer a question correctly due to not having the most updated code books. And it's part of our industry. It's something you should get used to. If it's an industry that you want to enter, you should get used to having new code books every single year.
Thank you.
Yes, you can bring in the prior year code books. I highly recommend bringing in the current year code books.
Perfect.
and do you want to speak to our electronic code books and how those just if anybody's aware of the requirements there, how they can be used? And
Sure. If you have not tried our electronic code books, I highly recommend them. I fought them in the beginning, and then I was told I was required to use it because how could I expect anybody else to use it if I didn't? And I have to tell you that I have stopped getting print books because I'm out of space in my attic for my old books. I'm out of space on my bookshelf for my old books, and I have nowhere to put new books. And I travel. And when I travel, I don't have to take books with me anymore because they are ebooks online. And our ebooks online mimic the print version of our books, so you still know how to use them. Furthermore, it's a lot faster for me to look up codes. I can find codes so much faster now, and I can find so much more information online.
I hear
the
that we have been
bookmarking,
talking about using them
highlighting.
on the exam.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Alex?
I hear, sorry, Dave. I hear that we've talked about using them on the exam or researching if that is a plausible thing. Is that
It
something
is
they can do?
absolutely a plausible thing
Okay.
that we may implement ebooks and exams in the future. In fact, I would expect to see that coming down the road in 2025 and probably fairly soon in 2025. It is on our list to implement. We will record videos that show how to use the ebooks within the exams, but it's the exact same ebooks that you get when you purchase the ebooks. It's the exact same platform We do have features that are stripped out of that platform to make sure that we keep our content secure. So you won't be able to email somebody else. You won't be able to share the notes in there. But yes, ebooks are definitely coming.
Not yet, but in the future, look out for that.
Short future.
Okay.
Short future. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think there's a big push for that. And so many benefits, and they're great. If you haven't seen them or used them, jump on the AAPC website, see if you can do we have any sample code books on the website?
I'll have to check into that, Dave. I'm not
I don't
quite
know if we
sure.
do either. I haven't been tasked
I
with
will tell you that when we did the beta test for the ebooks, that people were finishing much sooner than if they did not use ebooks.
Mm.
So it
Cool.
is definitely to their benefit to be comfortable with ebooks.
Much faster. And plus we live in a world where we're on our devices so much, right?
Right,
How
right,
often are we getting out the dictionary and
right,
looking it up, right? When we
right.
can just talk to our phone and be like, hey, what's this, right?
I also want to point out that we're not going to force you to use ebooks. There will be an option
Cool.
when it comes in. You can still take in your print books, but we will have an option for ebooks as well. I don't want
We showed
everybody freaking out saying they won't be
Love
able to
that.
take their books in. So you will be able to use your print
Right.
books as well.
we show sample pages on the ebook products in our store, so you may want to check that out. I don't know how closely that reflects what the experience is like, but you could take a look at that. And it also goes over the features, many of which
Okay.
Kathrine already did.
Yeah, we do have our that's not our in our ebook, or I'm thinking of our exam requirements tutorial that steps through people that are preparing to take the exam. They can uh basically take this little course, this little module that walks them through everything they can expect during the exam, what they need for it, depending on how they're taking the exam, whether it's live remote proctor or at a testing center, what area of the world they're in. It's a really good resource. And I think we had a section in there that talked about, maybe we don't, but talked about the ebooks and adding those
We
in.
actually are loaded. We're going to be adding some information in about
Yeah.
the ebooks, and we'll add video of actually using the ebooks within the system. I don't think that actual video has it in there yet, but we will be adding video in there.
Okay, that'll be coming my way, I'm sure.
Yes, it will.
We've got a small little, we have a few little ebook tutorials, but it's constantly changing. So they've added some amazing features, and I'm excited to be able to help showcase, how great those are. So,
Yes, it's exciting.
well, Kathrine, this has been fun. We're already at the top of the hour, so we better let you go so you can get back
That
to all
went fast.
Hey, our biggest mistake is not having Kathrine on more. I think Dave, we need to get her on a few more times.
I agree. I agree. You're great,
We'll
Kathrine.
start some 5-minute segment about something.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, just five with Kathrine or something. I
5
like
with cat. The cat 5. There you go.
Cat 5. Oh, I love that. It's like a Ethernet cable. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us again for Social Hour. Kathrine, thanks again. Alex, as always, you're the best. So we'll see
Thanks,
y'all next-
everyone.